Dreamcatchers, welcome to the Writer's Haven. I'm your host, V. Helena, and today we're delving into part 2 of our 2-part series on the business of writing and public relations. Author and publicist Cherrie Woods is back. She actually never left. And if you missed part 1, you're going to want to catch that show on our YouTube channel, which is the Writer's Haven Show with V. Helena. I know our Dreamcatchers already know that. Today we're going in a little deeper into the PR world of literature and filmmaking. So with that, I want to welcome back Miss Cherrie Woods. Thank you very much for staying an extended amount of time for us to finish up our discussion. And one thing that I wanted to pick up from our last discussion relates to media coverage. So in question 7 of your book, Where Do I Start? 10 PR questions and answers to guide self-published authors. You mentioned that local media coverage is really important, and I just want to find out from you, what are some of the challenges with getting local media coverage? And then tell us what some of the rewards are.
Well, I think the challenges oftentimes is more in the authors' minds because they just don't understand the media world. So actually getting local media coverage can be relatively easy to secure, but one of the first things I advise authors to do is if you want to be on a show, watch the show. And it may sound really simple, but really watch the show from a different perspective. So, if it's the morning show, which is usually the best entry into local television, watch the morning show, get familiar with the hosts. Look at the interviews, they're usually about 2 minutes. Look at the type of questions that get asked. Familiarize yourself with the different hosts and the interviewer style and get a feel for what a 2-minute interview is actually like so you can kind of practice on your own. Once you kind of identify, okay, I want to be on this morning show, for instance, then once the morning show is over, pick up the phone and call. It's usually the assignment desk. You can Google, everything's available on Google, and call the network, call the station, ask for the assignment desk. And I tell, clients sometimes it's as easy as they're there to answer questions. And unless you're calling during the time the show is on, the assignment desk is invaluable. Hi, I'm an author, or hi, I'm a filmmaker. I saw the morning show, and I just think the topic of my film or the topic of my book is really interesting. It's tied into something. Try to tie in whatever your movie or your book is about to something relevant, because then what you're doing is offering them a story, and they're looking for stories. Say my book, this is happening now, and my book is covering that topic, and I'd love to be on the morning show. What do I do? What's the process? They might say, well, send a press release to the assignment desk, would say, well, could I get the info for the morning show producer? Try to get to the morning show producer because they're really the ones that are selecting the ideas. Get their email address at the very least. It's probably not worth it to call them, but get their email address and say thank you, and then you sit down and we can go back to Google if you're not working with a publicist. And, so I want to write a press release or a pitch letter. Sample press release for mystery book, sample pitch letter for, movie on documentary. It's all on Google. Take that sample press release or that sample pitch letter, both. You can use either or, and fill in your information. And you have an email address. Make sure if it's a book, send your book cover because they want to see. They'll probably show your book cover on screen. Send a picture of yourself if you have it. And again, in that press release, you should really have your bio and synopsis, and then with your film. So a synopsis of your film, synopsis of your book. Send that email, get their attention, and don't, it could happen instantly because they're looking for that topic. It might take a while. But if you're consistent, send every week send weekly. Eventually, you will get on their radar. And I'm serious. Persistence is key in terms of being an independent artist. Just keep going. Sometimes you'll say, you know what? That Cherrie Woods is emailing us every week. Let's see what she's about. Just keep going. Just don't look for instant response, because just remember there's probably hundreds of others, artists, authors, in trying the same, method to try to get on TV. But familiarize yourself with the media that you want to be featured in, whether it be radio, TV, or print. Read that journalist articles, see what they're interested in, email them, ask them, hey, I'm new to this, how do I get your interest in my book? They're usually very accommodating. So I know it's a little daunting to some, but no effort really ever goes unrewarded. So just start by saying, I really don't know the process, but I have this great book, this great film, and you'd be surprised sometimes that you will get a response.
Excellent advice. And so then the reward of that is, because of that exposure,
right?
It will put your face, your brand, whether it's a book or it's a film,
right,
out to a larger audience.
Exactly.
And maybe to those who can actually do something to propel you into another stratosphere, whether it's another publisher, or it's a film house.
And the other plus of that as well is, so it's the morning show, and maybe the target group you want to see the morning show isn't watching, but you can also order a clip of that show and then add it to your website and to your social media. And I'll tell you, that gives you a lot of credibility. She was on television. Oh, she is serious. So you have that as an example for, say, one day a bigger network might want you, and they go to your website and you have a media page. They've seen, oh, she's not new to this. She's done this before. Again, that's building your credibility, and in our last conversation, your platform. That helps as well.
Okay, great. Now, you and I talked a little bit offline in the green room. We talked about books that, and we're not going to name any names, but just horrible. I mean, just poorly written.
Right.
We're scratching our head as to why they have been picked up by a major publishing house, or that a film has been optioned for it. Is that a sign of really good publicizing? A good publicist who said, you know what, I'm going to market this in a way that's going to attract the right people, and I'm just trying to understand that phenomenon. The good news is that much of the literature out there is really good literature.
Right.
But there are those instances where you're like, what the hell? So what is, in your opinion, what is that all about?
I think a lot of that is timing and topic. There's some topics that are really resonating right now, and someone might have written a book on that topic, and they might just be on social media. And just by chance, again, that's why being on the internet is so important. So we're like, you know what, let's do a film or something about this topic in your book. Let's do a search and see what's out there, and your book pops up. And if it's not, they're not looking for great literature, but they're looking for something on this topic to use as a base to make a movie, your not so great book could become that book.
Yeah.
So a lot of things now are timing and what's relevant. And you have those movies. I mean, we have, from the arts movies to chick lit to bad comedies to blockbusters. I mean, not every single movie or production is based on great literature. Some of it is just based on the idea of. And I mean, I don't want to name names either, but there's some very obvious books that have been made into movies in the last few years that I would say are probably not great reading, great literary reading, but they translate really well into film. And perhaps maybe yours could be that book.
Okay. So, let's see. We talked a little bit in part one of the series about your venture out into PR, and you talked more about once, the type of work that you were doing, and you've been doing this for 16 years.
Right.
But for those Dreamcatchers out there that are looking at the potential of delving into the whole PR world versus, being an author, because sometimes that happens,
right.
as you're writing and as you get more exposure into the business of writing, you determine, what, I'd rather do this. What advice can you give in terms of how to start?
I think it's always great. Again, I would say my platform, I was always active in the PR world, whether I was president of National Black PR Society, Detroit chapter. Before that, I was always involved in National Association of Black Journalists. I went to journalism conferences. I also sat on the Baltimore Public Relations Council board. So I was always immersed in the world anyway, and so you naturally get mentored. And
so it wasn't something that you decided that you wanted to do. It just kind of naturally evolved into a career.
I think for me, so you're saying at the beginning of PR? Oh, at my beginning, I had no idea what PR was, to be quite honest. It started in a very unusual way. I was in social work at the time, and they were starting this automation project. So we're going way back, where we were doing a lot of work manually. They were doing this automation project, and I got selected to work on this project where we were automating the system of how we're going to do business. And we had this mass meeting, the project team, and the director of the whole division was talking about, now that we're doing this project, and how are we going to roll it out to all of the area offices? And I literally whispered to my colleague, well, I hope they're not going to send out, another memo that none of us are going to read. And no joke, the director saw me whisper and said, "Excuse me over there, what did you just whisper?" And I was thinking, I'm about to lose my job. Excuse me. And I decided I might as well be honest. So I said, I was hoping that you're not going to share this information with a memo because we don't tend to read them. She goes, you know what? We're not going to do it that way. We're going to create a PR program, and you're going to be part of it. And you're going to advise us on how to roll this out to all the other divisions. And that's how I got in the field.
Okay.
And yes, and the method we used for rollouts was actually a roadshow, and we went to all the offices and we demoed the new system and we answered questions, and so that's how I really started in this field.
Yeah.
I didn't sit back and say I'm going to do PR.
Okay.
And then
if you at whatever age decided, I want to make this into a career,
then join organizations. Don't go alone, because that networking is so key to your success. Even now, from the days of being with and going to conferences and all those connections I made, they help me now. All the PR people I know, even online on social media, on Facebook, I'm in about 3 private pages for publicists and PR people. And so if you need a connection to celebrities, publicists, you can ask, and people are very generous on those private pages. So there's no need to go it alone. There's lots of networking opportunities offline and online. Join organizations, join journalism organizations, because we need to know journalists. There's no need to go alone. Even if you're shy, then join online groups. Networking now is so easy. So many. I'm on, for instance, on LinkedIn, I'm in a private PR group and I'm in an authors group. And I learned so much about what's going on in the authors world by the questions that we have back and forth. So there's a lot of those groups on social media.
What about Meetup? Have you tried Meetup?
I've tried Meetup as well. Meetup was more on the author side. Yes, definitely. I ended up on a call-in talk show answering questions about PR for poets from my Meetup group. And Meetups are great as well.
You're a poet as well.
Yes.
Wow.
I'm a poet as well. Yes. So.
What came first?
Definitely the poetry.
Okay.
I'd worked in PR, but I had never thought of being a publicist for individual authors or anything like that. I'm just an avid reader. I'm a poet, but more a dabbler. I would say when I joined Black Writers Guild of Maryland, I had 2 spoken word CDs, and then everyone else had a book, and it became the running joke. But then from going to every meeting, you learn, oh, this is how you self-publish, or this is how you publish. And you feel kind of comfortable. People are giving you advice, so why not try it? So again, there's that group
dynamic
that gives you an opportunity, to learn and bounce things off other people who've done it. So I say, just join something, whether it's Meetup, PR group, organizations. There will be other people who are new to it, so you won't be alone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about the film side, which I know you haven't really done a lot of film directly, but you've still worked within the entertainment industry and have done things that could definitely transfer over to film.
Right.
So in that arena of filmmaking, particularly with those filmmakers who, so their film is in the can, and now it's time to promote, and the first thing they're going to think is, well, let's go to the experts of the field of promotion, and there are all these different type of promotion houses and companies. Now, how do they relate to the work of a publicist, or do they? Are they 2 separate types of business?
Yeah, I think so. I think it really depends on your style as well and where you're at in your comfort zone.
What does that mean? How does that translate?
If you're kind of not sure as yet about where you're going, it might be better to go to just a company and kind of feel your way through before you tie yourself to an individual publicist. That's more of a commitment. Might be a little more expensive with a publicist because they're focusing on you. So I always tell people dabble a little bit, try what's out there. But key again is if you're in a film group or you're going to film conferences, word of mouth, you can ask, so what do you think? How should I start? People might give you some names. Oh, I tried this doesn't work, try this. Maybe you should start with a publicist, here's some names. Network, research, get information actually before you make any type of, particularly financial commitment. Word of mouth is so valuable. And again, when you're in organizations, people will say, oh, I tried that doesn't work. Or they might have a seminar, how to get your first film picked up. Here are things you may or may not do. Or there's books if you're a reader. And now with the internet, I mean, what can you not find out about? You know what I mean? You really can search almost anything. And go to conferences. I've gone to the conference, is it the Black Film Conference in Miami? And I'm not necessarily a filmmaker, but I learned a lot, and I networked, and I got to meet a lot of celebrities. Go to those conferences because they are just like a bedrock of talent and people at all levels in the industry who can give you good direction. So conferences are really, really important. Okay.
And also with filmmaking and once you go on that film festival trek, many of the film festivals have their own promotion engine,
and they have contests as well.
Right,
like
right. And so, in from that respect, because we've had some filmmakers on the show that have gone into the film festival circuit and have done actually very well in doing that. But how could a publicist support that? Because there's the film festival, they're promoting the film festival, and you just happen to have a film in the film festival. But I would think that a publicist, because they're promoting you and your product, the way in which they would do that would kind of be going into a different direction than a film festival.
So maybe it's getting your film reviewed by a reviewer, getting depending on which publication, so many cutbacks now, but, a lot of print publications had film reviewers at one time, maybe getting that on their radar, possibly holding a screening. Museums, ironically, a lot of people don't think of museums as places to even have a book signing or show your film. Museums are always looking for programming. Libraries at times are looking for programming. Look for organizations, or your publicist would. I tend to, with my authors, if I can, try to get them into programs at museums or libraries because these institutions have their own marketing machines. And so then what I'm doing is adding on. So a lot of times they'll have a publication that they mail out in the museums, whether it's the members magazine, libraries, their quarterly calendar. And so if you get featured there, you've got that audience that comes to a library. And then a lot of times I will then, your event's coming up, you're printed in the library, and then I will try to get you a television or a radio interview to add on to that. But yeah, particularly if you're new, try to, a lot of institutions have marketing and PR departments. So you're kind of got an advantage right away just being seen at these venues who have a natural audience anyway.
So that's something you would encourage?
That's something I encourage, and that's something I try to, a signing opportunity or be seen opportunity, I would target those types of organizations to try to get my clients opportunities there.
Okay. Yeah. In our last, in part 1 of the series, you talked about the differences between an agent and a publicist. And I think you glossed over, and I want you to be more definitive in how we discuss it now, not only the differences in what an agent will do for you in getting your book published versus a publicist who will ensure that the promotions of your book are at a level that is attributed to how well they pay you to do that. And that's where I'm going with the question is, whereas I think you said that with agents, they get a percentage.
Yeah, so if your agent is selling your film, they get a percentage. Okay, so Warner Brothers purchases your film, they might get 10 to 15% of that purchase. So I guess with an agent, that's why it can be a little tougher, because if I'm an agent, I want to represent a client whose product is very likely to sell. Whereas as a publicist, maybe you're not going to be a bestseller. Maybe you're just going to do okay, and it might sustain you part-time a little bit, but I'm still going to do the best I can because you're actually paying me. I'm not taking that product and making sure it sells so I get a percentage. So it's a very different role, I think, in your life. So unless you have that, if you're convinced that book or that film is a bestseller, it's been vetted, a lot of people have seen it, and maybe you just need to go the agent route. But if you're not sure, but you still want your book or your product out there in some respect, and you feel it might need a little more help in getting a platform and getting stronger, then you want to go with the publicist. But if your film or book's been vetted and everyone's saying this is, other people are saying they think this is the way to go, then going the agent route, might be the way to go. Okay.
All right, so one of the other things that you mentioned in the last segment was with respect to the online presence.
Right.
And, of course we know it's important to have an online presence.
Right.
But what exactly does a publicist do with respect to ensuring your online presence is expanded in a way that will be beneficial to either your film or your book?
If you're going to have an online presence, again, it's almost like if you're going to have a book cover, let it be a quality book cover. I think sometimes, particularly authors, get caught up in wanting all these bells and whistles, but I'm like, you're an author and your product is a good book, so you don't need a whole lot of extra. Just get a basic professional site.
Website.
Make sure there's enough white space. Make sure there's a good headshot, high resolution book cover, your buyer synopsis, media room where you've gotten some media coverage. If you've been out doing events, you can have a photo gallery. I just worked on a website for a poet. And so we put, I did my research and I saw what other poets are doing, particularly poets who have publishers. And I got an idea to actually put one of his poems on the homepage, one of his shorter poems, so people see his writing style right up front and his book cover. And I put one of his best reviews on the homepage. So right away when you go to his website, you see his style of poetry, you see a review, and you see the book cover. So, you know, and that's kind of, I noticed that was the standard on the poetry side. So I think the biggest thing now is everyone wants a preview of everything. There's no one wants to be surprised anymore. So with your author book, you know, put the chapter in there. People want to know what they're getting now. I mean, I remember
Amazon did
being
that.
excited. Yeah. So.
Amazon did that to us because they
Right.
started to
they really
you could preview the book, and then you had big name authors. James Patterson,
Yes.
you know, you can preview the first 10 chapters of his book.
Exactly.
So it's just things.
Follow the trend again.
Yeah.
You know, follow the trend. Because the more you follow the trend of published authors, the less people think about you being self-published. You know what I mean? So, yeah, if you're not, this site is
like
kind of
that.
out of that. That's why I say imitate, don't duplicate.
Yeah. Social media.
Yes. Yes.
Social media. So
And
what
that's,
about?
I'll be honest, a lot of my client demo ranges from late 20s to 80. And so as you get a little senior in your years, a lot of people didn't grow up with social media or the internet. And so when you're talking about someone over 60 years old, some people, now if someone over 60 is into it, they're into it. But a lot of times they're not into it at all. But I say you need to be on there in some capacity. And Facebook really is kind of the go-to now. And I say, you know, the key is consistency and, consistency. So I would say if you're going to choose one, choose Facebook and post 3 times a week. But if you're going to be Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and you're not posting on any, it's almost ineffective. Yeah. So choose one and you know, I said try to be on there 3 times a week at the minimum. And then your website is online as well.
Right. And then there are tools available like Hootsuite and others that you can just put in one message and it'll go to 5, 10 different media outlets to kind of help those.
But that's also driven by who's your readership. So I mean, if your readership, if the demo you're in, if your readers are later, you know, more senior, 60 plus, and your Facebook, you're fine. Yeah. They're not tweeting or using Twitter as a rule. So, you know, again, that's key again in doing the research. Who are your readers? If they're mostly millennials, you need to be on everything. You might even want to consider starting a blog. But if it's people with a little older demographic, you know, you can do Facebook and maybe just LinkedIn if it's a business book. Yeah. So don't, it's true. You know, so many people, oh my God, I have to be on everything. But you really don't. Just whatever you're on, be consistent.
Dreamcatchers, I hope you enjoyed our 2-part series on the business of writing from a PR perspective. If you missed part 1 of this show or any of our shows, you can catch up on our YouTube channel at The Writer's Haven Show with V. Helena. And just become a subscriber and you'll never miss a show. So go to it, do that. How about that? Next week, DM Cuffey will be in the Haven to discuss her 3 Ps, passion, process, and projects. And then we'll start a new season with New York Times bestselling author Connie Briscoe. You don't want to miss out on these episodes. So I'll see you next time in the Haven. And until then, catch fire on purpose.
Green hat, red hat, oops. Red shirt, blue shirt, yellow shirt, oops. Yellow pants, red pants, green pants, oops.